myth that I see way too much, that something is happening when you get to college. Like, oh my God, dude, like, I need to like study up to get to college, and I need good grades, and like I get to college. Like, college is like this Shangri-La or like some Narnia or something, like how California was like in the 90s. And it isn't, it's like California now though. It's not like California 90s.
With another episode of the Last American Podcast.
Hell yeah.
So this week we're gonna overtalk each other right out of the gate, but initially we're gonna start talking about the war on classes and essentially where everybody's landing right now. This is, I feel like, the biggest class divide we've really ever had. Mm-hmm. I mean, in my lifetime. I don't know if it's ever been.
It's pretty insane. Like, the idea that we might be in a division more extreme than how it was like in the 1800s with like Rockefeller and Carnegie and JP Morgan and like all the old titans of industry. You know, we're in a world where just people have like an insane wealth amount. Like, you know, Elon Musk, we got Jeff Bezos, we got Zuckerberg, we got Jamie Dimon. You know, we got people, and we got the guy that runs Disney. Can't remember his name.
I don't know his name, but the guy who runs Disney.
The guy who runs Disney. He retired, then he had to come back because Disney was falling apart. And it is getting crazy. Like, it's so expensive to live everywhere, and yet people are just living.
It's weird. Like, I think we have to set an income level of like what is lower class, what is middle class, and what is upper class. Because when I was a kid, I mean, even lower middle could afford to buy a house,
right? You
know, and then now you look at the cost of housing respective to the area, and it's like, I mean, upper 10% can afford to take on a mortgage, not even buy a house. The upper 10% of people are able to take on enough debt to buy a house.
Right.
And then in other areas, you know, we live in an incredibly well-to-do area, and I'd say the top 2% can do it, you know, maybe. So it's really weird that, okay, so that post for the American dream has kind of become more unattainable.
It's almost like you have to live in the rural area with a big city income. Like, it's crazy that, and there's such a weird incentives thing, whereas as you grow up, you're incentivized to do cool things, and what prevents you from doing cool things is have this insane debt that's your mortgage hanging around your back, and you can't move because then you have a house and you have to move, or you have to sell your house and buy another house. Like, it becomes a big process, and you're like, what if I just rent and I just move around? And you're incentivized to not buy, and then at the same time, corporate industry has decided that they can make a quick buck by buying up real estate, and just like, I don't even know what they do with it.
Well, it's weird because the idea.
Well, I think it's because the tax incentive is so crazy to have real estate.
Well, the idea that, you know, I'm not sure when it really started, but like the idea that owning property was like your key to wealth. And I understand it is most people's largest asset, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, 30% of your income plus interest, and then at the end of this magical rainbow, you pay off your house and you retire. And then it's like, okay, where do I live now? Do I continue to live into my house, or do I cash my house out and go pay rent somewhere else? You know, because it's like, you don't really get to see that unless you liquidate the asset.
I'm just trying to think, because there's two different contexts to this. This is the modern world, and then like the original way we used to live for thousands of years. And like, if you owned land and property, you were a baron, right? Yeah. You literally had an estate. You had a villa, and then the people worked on your land that didn't have anything. You like built little shacks for them to like scourge.
Indenture
like you built little nonsense to them, And that's basically how a kingdom was, right? Like the king had the castle, and then like everyone just lived around it, and then they just, even the lords like lived in the vicinity of the castle. And so that was your mark that you were the man, like you owned all the land. So and in that, in a world where it was a monarchy instead of a democracy, the incentive to keep things the same was so much more severe at that time. Like you were like protecting the people that work for you, protecting the way you live, protecting. Now in this weird like modern democracy, it's almost incentivized to like you're the problem if you want to keep anything the same. Like the idea that conservatism is like an option instead of like the standard.
Well,
like,
what's weird to me is like when you just look at the idea of ownership,
right?
And then it's like, okay, I buy a big house down here, pay it off, and I die.
Right. Yeah.
Do I own that piece of land forever?
Well, that's the thing. Is technically in the previous thing you had a deed and it went to your first of kin, and that was law for thousands of years, and there wasn't a tax on it because it was your property. And now we feel like everything is an amoeba of property. Like nothing is anyone's property, and the government could just take anything you have at any time. So it's very, very strange. Because even like in medieval times or any of the Baroque era, like the lords like had to decide with the king, like, hey, like you're going to do this on my land, that's okay, but like if the king was gonna take the dukes or the lords' lands, it was like a big deal. Like you would have to go to war with your own people. Like, and I feel like now it's just so watered. That's how they want us. They want us watered down, no unity, no. This is a term I think I've fought many people over decades. Is the word xenophobia. Like they hate xenophobia because xenophobia is the thing that will resist any tyranny. It's that xenophobia is like the idea that the stranger is less than us, which is inherent to like unions, kingdoms, countries. Like the idea is that we're the best. Everyone else can, kick rocks and all that stuff. And you kind of need a certain amount for you to be like, leave me alone. And if you come here, come and take it type of thing.
But how many people have owned, once you buy a piece of land,
right,
and then like let's just say we're able to do a 2,000 year screenshot,
right,
how many people have owned that land? Like how many people have, it's not like you buy a piece of land,
okay,
and it's forever yours. Like the ownership has changed land numerous times due to wars, bankruptcies, people selling it off, whatever.
Okay.
But the land, like the idea of purchasing land is you're like, this is my land.
Okay.
I own this. But
okay,
you owe a percentage to the government.
Right.
And then not only that, a changing rate to the government.
Okay. Well, it depends what the government is, right? If you were the king.
Well, I'm saying the current United States,
If you're the king, it's like, what do you mean?
It's like, hypothetically, in this area in particular, we watch a lot of houses that were built in the 1950s
right,
for, $5 to $10 grand, are now worth between $1 and $3 million.
Right.
The people who initially purchased that house, had a reasonable income. They paid off the house, and then now the government wants to reassess the value of your house. Your house isn't valued at what you bought it for. Your house is valued at it now.
I think the problem is that they view homeownership as the business, and our grandparents that built, that had the homes, that worked the jobs, have established the business, and the business is the cities, and now the cities are very abundant and flourishing. So now that they think that they could sell a successful business to us at market rate instead of having nothing here, right? Like when our grandparents came here, there was like nothing here.
And even housing now, one of the bigger things is like I never really see like starter homes being built. Everybody's like, I'm building a 5-bedroom, 3-bath with like a detached pool and a guest house, but like you don't really see the no one's really going after the starter home market, which is just going back to the classism we started this whole conversation on.
It's
just like, well, okay.
I don't even understand how people, like, I understand that people are working many jobs, which is like everybody now. And the idea that there is a career is like an old idea that you work one job and that's it. And like,
well, I mean, the idea of a pension's gone.
Yeah.
Even if you have a pension with the rate of inflation,
the pension was
what kept you.
Well, not only that, but like the pension was from the union. The union was from the people that congregated that told the company, hey, if you hire somebody else, will burn down their house and wreck your company and destroy all your stuff. It was a very, like, it all comes back to this idea that, like, without xenophobia, everything just goes to corporate greed. And, like, it's a weird idea that you can't escape because it's like in Hawaii. Hawaii's a perfect example of this. It's like if Hawaiians weren't such dicks, like, America would just run a train right through there. Because they're like, you can't build on the holy mountain, and you can't do this, and like, you guys are mainlanders, go back to your stupid land, And if they weren't like that, we would just like literally build hotels on every second, every inch of that land.
And not only that, but it's insane that like we would build houses like. Yeah, dude, it's on an active volcano. If this thing goes off, like you are
right on TV and falls right in the ocean.
And it's a
like,
very
interesting.
Yeah, it's a very interesting world. And then now we're hitting this point where not only is the cost of building materials so expensive, but the insurance on owning a property, even if you bought a house with a low mortgage, your insurance is doubling every probably 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, now your $100,000 house burned down, but now the wood to replace that is it's $60,000, and then all the guys building your house want $60 an hour to build this house.
Right.
And you're like, wow, now my house costs more, and insurance is just doubling and doubling. So it's like, do we run into a point where it's like people have taken out mortgages on their home, they were able to make the mortgage and insurance, their mortgage rate hasn't changed,
right?
But can their insurance get so high that they just have to tap out? Or does the bank have to call the loan and be like, look, I know you own this house, but we can't let you have a loan on a property that doesn't have insurance because that's a risk to our asset?
It's a complicated thing because the idea that all these insurance companies are leaving California because of how the state has been run is insane. Like the idea that we don't have like a bureau of the government to like actively find arsonists, like who are 90% of the people that are starting fires.
Well, but not just, but I mean, whatever, that's California, but like, Florida is going to get demolished every minimum every 2 years.
It's like being in Tornado Alley, right?
Yeah, you build a house in Tornado Alley, and that's the thing is they'll sell you all, like you live in Tornado Alley, and like flood insurance is very cheap, but like tornado insurance is like through the roof. And same thing in California, we can get flood insurance no problem, but fire insurance, and it's weird that it's all not bundled together. Like we should just have, I don't know if we should just have one giant national insurance company. But we're getting, and then they just cover every single aspect of insurance. It's like, or is insurance in itself a violation of the Constitution? Remember when they initially made you get insurance on cars? People were like, "This country is communist. Like this is communism. That the vehicle I own, I have to pay to have insurance."
The idea that insurance isn't communism. Making you buy insurance is. Like making you do something that you don't want to do is like, you're like, if you want to insure your, because this has to go with like way back when you're shipping stuff over the Atlantic, and you're like, I need to insure the boat, for pirates and stuff. Like I gotta pay you a certain amount. Just to say, hey, if the pirates hit the ship, like I'll get something back, right? But now, and then that works for everything, right? Like you can pay insurance for your rental car, right? Yeah. You're like, I don't know how this trip's gonna go. Put in the extra $60, like to get the insurance. Like it's just kind of how much you want to prep the trip. People get insurance for flight, for returning your money for your flights.
What's funny is the people who opt out insurance and then crash the vehicle are uber screwed.
Yes.
And you know, it's a very. I mean, I feel like we've gotten away from the original topic, which was the class warfare, and it's like right now, it's like I feel like the middle class. I mean, so the median income in the United States is roughly $70,000, give or take $70,000, and owning a house used to be 4x the average income, so 70, 140. Looking at 280, 4x your income, you know. And then now we have two college-educated people who are both earning in the top 10%, which I believe 10% is, and we go by household, not individual, which is hard to tell. But if your household is making over 180K, that puts you in the top 10%. And it's like if you're making 180K now, then that means your 4 times would be 720 would be the average cost of a home. But the average cost of a home now is about 7.5 years just to pay off what you pay for the house. That's not including
the interest,
the interest, and that's not including maintenance, and that's not including insurance. So it's become such a huge thing. And again,
and by the time that you actually pay off the house, you'll be divorced from that person that you were with, and
they will more than likely
wreck you and take your stuff.
House, you know?
And you're like, I should have just kept renting. You know, like,
I can't take the rental from you. You know, so it's just such an interesting way that the world has. And we're just not. We're supposed to be United States, and we're supposed to all be helping each other, and like we're all in this together. But this system has just become like we're all trying to make $1 off of each other.
Yeah, it's become very nihilistic is the good way to put it. Like the idea that I care about anyone is like the last thing I'm thinking about. I'm like,
you know what's funny is like even social media now that was originally supposed to be social media, and it's a glimpse into your life, and then like corporations come in and they're like, hey, you know what? Share that you use, you know, Dawn detergent for all your stuff, so your followers are aware. And it's like now, it's like you get on social media, and it's like I remember back in the day, like when it first started out, everyone just posted pictures of their food, and I was like, this is stupid. But now it's become everybody selling themselves, women selling themselves, and people selling courses claiming they've made money. Like
they've turned
it's just
everything
a selling machine
into, you know, this Kim Kardashian thing where they turned everything into a brand. And then your life is a brand, and you're like, what kind of life? You know, what's funny is I watched this a lot of shows on the historical shows, and the Sun King, Louis the 16th or the 14th, was the Sun King, and he said that his whole life was a performance. He goes, when I get up, you know, they dress me, and I have to act a certain way so that they respect that I am the one true king, benighted by God. And so I have to give that presence every second I'm alive for them to not overthrow me and stab me in the back of the neck. You know, like, because they'll overthrow me. So every second he's performing. And that's how I feel like every loser in America has to perform on the internet.
Well, I mean,
like,
you know,
get girlfriends, to get anything, like to get
it's insane now. even going back to classes, and like the idea of a relationship right now has gone so haywire that like women were fed this idea that every man needs to be a high earner, tall and ripped, and then men were fed this idea that women need to stay home, cook, clean, be a 10 out of 10, and nobody's willing to budge on their expectations. Well,
because they can see on the internet that there are people that they think they can't. They don't know these people. They're just images on the screen. But they're like, oh, this person looks like they do. You know, they make one meal on the internet, and then all of a sudden they cook and everything. They don't cook ever. They literally just cook on the camera.
But because of that, it just led into such a toxic culture. Divorce is way up. I mean, morals are out the window. You know, like I could go walk down the street and ask any single person, you know, like, would you do something debaucherous? And they'll be like, no. And then I'll give you $100,000, and they will.
Yeah.
Those morals are out the window.
Yeah.
And not only for that, but then it's like, how do they choose to spend their money? More than likely, that $100,000 would be gone incredibly quickly, and it's just.
And it's at some point you're like, maybe it doesn't matter if they spend it frivolously. Because you're thinking like the old way where you're like, oh, I need to like survive and I need to like thrive and make it to my old age. And they're like,
yeah, it's
like
it's called doom spending. Exactly.
They'll be like, they'll just bail me out. The government will just bail me out and they'll give you a free. It's everything's happening, and you know the nihilism that everyone's felt is just everywhere. And I think that there's this myth that I see way too much, that something is happening when you get to college. Like, oh my God, dude, like I need to like study up to get to college, and I need good grades, and like I get to college. Like college is like this Shangri-La or like some Narnia or something, like how California was like in the 90s. And it isn't. It's like California now, though. It's not like California now.
Well, it's so funny because it's a business, just like how everything else in this country is a business, and it's like you go in there and you're promised.
It's like an insurance company, which is that like literally 10% actually need the insurance, and like 90% fund this insurance.
You can do most jobs without college. You know, just given an opportunity and willing to succeed. But then it's like, okay. It makes no sense now, because even if you were to go and get again, you know, most of these people are college educated. They're earning 70 to 80 grand a year, and they've got, you know, depending on how you live through college, 40 to 100,000. It could be more. Some people have masters making less than some of these job postings I see are $20 an hour.
It's not that like if you lived in Germany and your college was free, it wouldn't be a big deal. It's like you just wasted a bunch of time. But the fact that like master's degrees are like $80,000, like it's ridiculous. Like, what kind of small business?
I mean, the ROI,
business loan out.
Well, it's funny because you'd be better off taking out a small business loan than a college loan, but they won't give it to you.
It's crazy. Like,
I mean, for an $80,000 investment, the minimum ROI I expect to see is $500,000.
I just thought about this. This is a great idea. You should have to write a business plan instead of like an application to the college. You should be like, what is my success moving forward? Like, I have to do this. Like, if you're going to be a doctor, you're like, okay, your business plan is pretty simple. Like, I'm going to get in the hospital, they're going to pay me $230,000 a day, you know?
Well, it's funny though, because even, you know, like when I grew up, like, for example, a doctor was like the upper echelon of earning, and the first thing college teaches you is to be a slave and to work for somebody else. It doesn't teach you to go be successful on your own, which has an infinite earning potential. It just teaches you, I'm going to be a good worker for somebody else.
Well, you have to meet the criteria. Like, every class has criteria. They hand you a piece of paper packet that says, this is what we expect on this semester, this is what we expect on this semester, these are the rules for the test, this is all this stuff. And you have to like meet all of the criteria to like get through. And that happens at every class, through every department, through every, like, you have to do capstones, you have to do all this stuff to graduate. And you're like, yeah, I made it through all the hoops. And in the real life, like, what the hell did you waste? What hoops? Like, what are you talking about? Like,
well, it's funny because at the end of it, I mean, if you go through school and you do maybe a computer science major, doctors, anesthesiologists, you know, they're high earners. But for the most part, you make it through all the hoops and you get a job and you are lower middle class, you know, and it's like, okay, you have to go get a second job.
Well, what's weird is the trade schools really turned on, like, because their unions are so strong. Because, they don't take any S.
Even without a union, it's just the no skill person. You know, it's like, okay, you're a high earner at your job, but you can't fix a garbage disposal.
I think that what inflation happened at college. Like, you know, the fact that a lot of women and a lot of people that aren't skilled at all go to college, and they come out, and literally a carpenter has 1,000% more practical use than all these people coming out of college. And like, college is like this kind of catch-all thing that people think that you have to do now.
It's a business. It's brilliant business.
But it's shoved down from the top down. It's shoved down. It's shoved down from literally the top of the government, like the executive branch, like the president, secretary of state.
You know
like
what's
every sector of like, it's like, oh, your education is the key to your success.
Well, it's like, so first of all, Kamala, going to the current presidential candidate, said, we're going to get rid of the government, the mandatory college credentials to get government jobs. She's like, we're blocking people from getting their own jobs. So she's saying right there that it's like, hey, these could be done without this. And then it's even funnier. Most companies, and I've worked for a lot of companies, you know, multi-billion-dollar companies, and it's funny that the secretary always went to some prestigious college, and it's usually UCLA, and she has UCLA stickers, like banners, Go Bruin stuff all over her desk. It's all a ton of pride for going to this school.
Yeah.
But they're missing the fact that they're not running the business. And most of my friends that I went to school with, a lot of them skipped school and went and started their own business. I had a friend, one of my good friends, started a lawn care business, turned that into a landscaping business, went and got his construction, contractor's license. And I mean, you know, he's doing better than most anesthesiologists now. And it's just like, okay, that route wasn't given to you. And it's just a very funny time in the world.
People in Europe don't understand this because they already have what you're explaining, which is that, like, hey, if you want to do a trade, like, there's a whole system to do that. Here, it's just like, if you don't go to college, you're like, what are you doing? You're going to end up in the morass. And apparently the morass is very lucrative right now. Like, I don't know if the college is almost like, what are you going to get out of college? Like,
it's like I'm not completely you know, like, I'd be willing to bet engineer, medical, even nursing now, you're pretty much lower class, though. And it's just changed.
Well, it used to be a all-female job.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're running long on the tooth again.
Yeah, so. It's been a good one, guys. Like and subscribe. We'll see you next week.
Made it.
Bye.